Hi, my name's Karen Allen, founder of Dare to Dream and author of the book Yes You Can Turn Your Life Around. Today I just want to share with you some of my journey, a bit of my story, and in particular I want to share with you the 5 things that I've implemented in my life over the past 5 years that have completely caused my life to turn around, that have helped me to transform my life in so many different ways to the point where I'm now in a position where I use my life to help other people to be inspired and to be empowered, and with the ultimate goal for their lives also to be transformed. You see, 5 years ago, I was a married, stay-at-home mom with both of my children, married to an amazing man with 2 amazing children. Yet still, I found myself in a state of depression, very discouraged, very despondent, very disheartened, simply because I had lost sight of myself. I had lost sight of my own passion. I had lost sight of my goals. I had lost sight of my dreams. And I found that I was spiraling into this dark place where I couldn't see clearly who I was or what I wanted. And during that time, during that season of my life, I found that I questioned everything. I questioned everything about everything I knew, everything that I once dreamt of, everything that I wanted to pursue in my life. And I experienced what I call an identity crisis. I call it a catastrophic identity crisis simply because at that time I could not find who I wanted to be. I could not locate what it was about me and the things that I loved that I still wanted to pursue. I completely lost sight of that. And during that season, I found myself asking myself a number of questions. And I then embarked upon a journey to answer those questions. And it was a very crucial and critical point in my life because it was the place that I could have made one of 2 choices. I call it my fork in the road or my turning point, where I could have made a decision to use my experience being a stay-at-home mum with 2 boys, at the time finding out that I was pregnant with my 3rd son, which was not good news. I could have used that experience to be the reason why I could no longer pursue my dreams and go after my goals and design in many ways my own destiny. Or I had the choice to make that situation be the reason why I had to pursue my goals and my dreams with much passion and much vigor, with no excuses. So during that time, I began to ask myself some questions. And in particular, I asked myself 3 questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what do I want? Those were the 3 questions I found that I asked myself. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is it that I actually want? And throughout that time, I began to search for answers to those questions. And in searching for those answers, I began to go on a journey. So I set on a path of self-development and self-improvement that caused me to do 5 things that have completely transformed my life in so many ways. 5 years ago, if someone had told me that I'd be doing today the things that I am doing today, I would have said to them, you're absolutely crazy, no way, because my mind wasn't in the place to even see beyond where I was at that time. But thankfully, things have completely changed, but it didn't change by accident. It actually changed on purpose. There were things that I had to change myself in order for my life to change. And I believe that every single one of us at some point in our lives get to a stage where we ask ourselves at least one, if not all 3 of the questions that I found me asking myself. Because every one of us has within us, I believe, a purpose and a passion. We are all passionate about something, and we are all here to do something in particular that is unique to every single one of us. And those 5 things that I put in place have not only impacted my life, but I've now been blessed to impact the lives of many others. And I want to share with you what those 5 things are today, in the hope that you can take something from my life experience and hopefully implement it in your own life, especially if you find yourself in a dark place or at a fork in the road or at a critical, crucial turning point where you're not sure which way to turn. And especially if you're in a place, I call it the cocoon place. Because, and the analogy that I often use is that of a caterpillar becoming a beautiful butterfly. In order for the caterpillar to fulfill its potential and to reach its destiny, it has to go through a dark season. It has to go through a process of transformation, which they call a metamorphosis. And I believe that each of us in our lives will hit that stage, that point where change has to happen. But in order for change to happen, we have to do something about that. We are in control of the change that happens. Because in order for our lives to turn around, the catalyst for that turnaround is going to be change. So the first thing I did was I changed my mind. Literally. I had to change my mindset about the situation and the place that I found myself in. Because while I was in that dark place, in that cocoon place, I had convinced myself that this was it. I'd convinced myself that now I am a full-time stay-at-home mom. I will not have the time, I will not have the energy to do the things that I was once passionate about. I had convinced myself that now that I was about to have 3 children, there was no way I could pursue the dreams that I had once had. But what I had to do in order to get myself out of that place, that mindset, is change my mind. And can you imagine if a caterpillar gets into the cocoon and decides, this is it. This is who I've become. This is where I'm going to stay. You know, I can't get out of this situation. And it never actually follows through or endures, I should say, that process of transformation to become what it was actually destined to become. And a lot of people, when we come up against setbacks and hardships and we fail at things, we conclude that this is it. But what I had to do is I had to change my mindset, and I had to actually decide that this is not it. And it is only it if I decide that that's the case. So I set upon a path of changing my mind, and how I did that was 3 things. Number 1, I had to be conscious about the thoughts that I was thinking at that time. So whenever I would think, oh no, I'm at home, 3 kids, this is it, what's the point? I would have to catch myself and say, no, Karen, your dreams are still within your reach. You can do what you once wanted to do. You're just going to have to adjust your life in such a way that you can be the best wife and mother that you can be while still pursuing your dreams. So I had to be conscious about the thoughts that were going on in my mind. The second thing I had to do was I had to be very, very careful about who and what I allowed to seep into my life at that time. For example, if I was watching a program where people had given up on themselves or given up on their dreams, and then they just accepted that that was it, I had to make sure that I switched that program off, because that was not going to help my mindset about where I was at that time. Also, if I spoke to people who agreed with my negative mindset, that said, you know what, Karen, you got 3 kids now, you might as well forget all of that dreaming stuff. If I was around people like that, I literally had to sideline those people, because I wanted my mind to change, because I still wanted to live the absolute best life that I could. So that was the first thing I did. I changed my mind, and I did so by being conscious, by being cautious, and also by conducting what I called a mental audit. And I actually wrote down all the negative things that I was thinking at the time, why I thought that I'd never be able to pursue my dreams, what was so bad about being a stay-at-home mum with 3 kids, the ironing, the washing, the cleaning, the nappies, etc. I wrote all of that down, and then I literally replaced that with the opposite of actually what was great about where I found myself. So I had more time to spend on my personal development because I wasn't at work at the time. I was at home. I had much more time to read. I had much more time to get to know my kids in a way that a lot of mums who do work are not in that position to do so. I had a lot of great things going for me. So I had to conduct a mental audit that helped me to change my mindset to the point where I started to believe that whilst I might not be able to pursue my dreams in the way that I had planned, I was still able to pursue my dreams. It would just have to take a different course. The second thing I did during that time of my life was I changed what I said. And what I mean by that is the things that caused me to get in the mental state that I was in, much of it was to do with the things that I was saying to myself about my situation. And many people don't know this, but the most frequent conversation that we have, the person that we talk to the most every day, is ourselves. We are always having conversations with ourselves about the things that are happening to us, about the things that have happened to us, about the things that we are anxious that may happen to us. We are always conversing with ourselves. And at that time in my life, the things that I was saying to myself were causing me to feel even worse about my situation than my situation actually was. So what I had to do was I had to change the words that were, number one, coming out of my mouth, but more importantly, the words that were not coming out of my mouth, but the words that I was speaking in my subconscious, the words that people didn't hear, that I was saying to myself between my own two ears. So I had to change that. And that was probably by far one of the hardest things that I had to do, because most of us we are taught, we are programmed to be negative about situations that occur in our lives. We are very much subconsciously programmed to find the worst in things as opposed to the best. We have to fight to find the best, to see the best in others, to see the best in situations. So that was probably my biggest fight, because I had always been the kind of person who battled with low self-esteem and lack of confidence. So when I came up against the brick wall, or I came up against a setback, or I failed at something, I would always talk myself down. I would always say things like, Karen, you're so stupid. Look, you did it again. You know that you shouldn't have done that. You know that you shouldn't have said that. And I would always say things to bring myself down. So when I was in that place, that cocoon place, I had to actually fight to change the things that I was saying to myself. The thing is that our words have creative and destructive power. So the path that we are taking in life is going in the direction of our words. Our words go before us, and our lives follow that. So I had to be careful of the things that I said in order to get a turnaround in my life. I had to consciously, on purpose, change the things that I said. And in order to do so, I literally had to catch myself. So the first thing I did was I gave myself an assignment. For 24 hours, I would consciously listen to what I was listening to. So I would pay attention to what I listened to on the radio. I'd pay attention to the things that I was watching on the TV. I'd pay attention to the conversations I was having on the phone, just so that I could check what I would actually say to myself as a result of those things. The other thing I did was I paid attention to what I allowed myself to watch, whether it be on telly, whether it be to read, or just around in my surroundings. I would pay attention to it because I recognized that those things would impact upon what I then said about myself. And because I was in a place where I was saying a lot of negative things, I had to be conscious of what I was listening to and what I was watching, so that I could then stop myself from doing that and replace it with something else. So watching what I said was a huge turning point for me, because it was something that I had struggled with for so many years, and I had to stop saying negative things about myself. Even when I felt negative about myself, I had to stop myself and replace it with something positive about myself. So changing what I said during that time completely helped in pushing forward and speeding up that process of transformation.